Hello everyone and welcome to the YMB Movie Talk Podcast here on youtube.com. My name is Simon Mansell and I'm so happy that you've decided to join me today to talk about the best thing in the world, that is films. Now, just to point out, I'm fully aware that I haven't been doing, hang on, let me just sort my camera out because it's positioned really weird. Sorry about this, guys. There we go. That's it. That's better. Right. Okay. Now, I know I haven't been doing the podcast for a while, but the reason why is because I was ill for a while. I wasn't very well. And then the football season started, the new FIFA game come out. So a lot of my spare time's been doing that really. I haven't really found a lot of time to fit the podcast in. But now I've tried to get back into the podcast. I've been waiting to go to the cinemas, so I could talk about films again and all this stuff. So the main reason why I'm doing this podcast today, guys, is talking about the new DC Comics film, one of the most anticipated films for a lot of people this year, and my most anticipated film for this year as well, and that is Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix. It's directed by Todd Phillips, who's probably best known for doing the Hangover films. He did War Dogs as well, Due Date. He's done a lot of comedies. So when it was announced that he was going to be directing Joker, I think it turned a lot of heads. I think a lot of people were surprised at that because that's not his usual go-to when it comes to films. So obviously for a lot of people, I think that was very surprising. But, a lot of people say people who do comedy can really get into drama very well. And I think that's definitely the case for Mr. Todd Phillips. Now, this camera's really not helping me today. Okay, right, I think it's steady. Okay. But yeah, guys, talking about the Joker, this is my most anticipated film for this year. It was Joker and It Chapter 2. Those were the two films really after Endgame and after all that hype died down. Definitely for the rest of this year, it was It Chapter 2 and Joker. Now, I haven't gone to see It Chapter 2 yet. I know it's been out for a while now. It's been out for probably about a month and a half. But I just haven't found the time to go and see it. I think it goes out of cinemas near me on Friday. So I've got up until Friday to see it. My aim is to go and watch it tomorrow. So hopefully I can go and watch it then. I'm very excited to see it. I've heard very mixed reviews on It Chapter 2. A lot of people say it's good, but it doesn't really hold a candle to the first one, which, the first one for me is one of the best horrors in the past 10, 15 years. So I think it's a lot of, expectation to live up to. So whether it's going to live up to that for me is going to be, something that's going to be very interesting to find out. But I know for a lot of people, It Chapter 2 just didn't really do it for them. So I'm quietly confident / nervous to see how It Chapter 2 goes. But I'm very curious to see how that's turned out. If you liked It Chapter 2, if you didn't like it, give me your thoughts in the live chat. And we can have a little discussion about It Chapter 2 later on in this podcast if that's what you want to do. So, right, getting from It Chapter 2, let's talk about Joker. Now, this film, when it was announced a couple of years ago, had Martin Scorsese attached to it, obviously one of the best directors of all time. He was attached to produce this film with Todd Phillips directing. He was brought on board a bit later. And obviously it was kind of discussed that this film was going to take a lot from Scorsese's work from the 70s and the 80s. Things like King of Comedy and Taxi Driver was noted as big inspiration. So if there's any Scorsese fans or any fans of those films, then I think going into Joker, you kind of know what to expect as far as the story and the tone. But that being said, Joker, even though it does take a lot of inspiration from those films, it definitely is its own thing. It's definitely its own beast in that way. Not to say that there's a lot of moments. If you're familiar with, especially Taxi Driver, if you're familiar with Taxi Driver, when the film kind of hits that second act, when it hits halfway through the second act and it starts to lead into the third act, you'll definitely notice a lot of Taxi Driver references in there. So, but me as a film fan, as a classic film fan, I enjoyed little things like that. But it was more of a homage than a direct rip-off. So that didn't really affect me that much. But with that being said, Joker for me, this is the best film I've seen in about 5-6 years. That's probably going to surprise a lot of people. This film's had a lot of controversy about it. When it was first premiered at Venice, people was going crazy about it. People thought it was the second coming, of this renaissance for dark superhero films, and I think it could be. It definitely is a renaissance, I think, for standalone comic book films. Not everything has to be connected. Not everything has to be a universe. You can just make standalone films and just have them in their own world, and it can work. Not everything needs to be connected. Not everything needs to follow the Marvel formula. Things can be their own, and I think Joker is a perfect representation of how to do a film in its own universe and not let it kind of affect the quality of the film or how people will view the film. A lot of the controversy from Joker has came more from it's come from the subject matter. Some of the content in it has been seen as very controversial. The violence, has been seen. I think people have gone into this film expecting one thing and they've got something else. I think obviously we're in this age now with comic book films where they're very much aimed at audiences of a much younger age. Even things like Deadpool, which is super violent, and there's way more violence in Deadpool than there is in this film. So there's way more violence in Deadpool, but it's the tone of the films that are very different. So obviously in Deadpool, it's a lot of it's played for comedy, where in Joker, it's very dark and very, it's a very kind of dull, very dark film in that way. So Deadpool isn't the same. So when you watch Joker, it kind of hits more, which obviously is the point of the film, but it works perfectly, in my opinion, to really set a tone there. So the film has a lot of controversy, and I think people were expecting a sort of a modern day comic book film, that's a lot more light-hearted and doesn't take itself very serious. Joker isn't that film. So if you're going into Joker expecting a very, light-hearted, family-friendly, fun superhero film, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that at all. This film is not fun to watch. Let's just put it like that. But for me, I like quite dark films anyway. I like films that tackle difficult subject matter and kind of explore, things that we don't usually get in mainstream Hollywood films. I like films like that, especially films that are so widely marketed as this. That really appeals to me. And I think it's very brave from Warner Brothers to go down this route with this property, because they could easily have just made this very neutered, kind of knocked down the rating a little bit like Venom in that way, how it kind of seemed like it was aimed more towards an older audience in pre-production and its promotion. Then as soon as it came out, it was very clear that this film was edited to be a PG-13 or a 12 in England. Joker isn't that. Joker is a very dull, dark, depressing exploration into what drives a human being to go insane. That's the best way I can sum Joker up. Just by the way, if you don't want to hear spoilers about Joker, if you want to stay away from spoilers, then it's probably best to not watch this podcast, because we're going to go into everything in this film. We're going to delve into the nitty gritty. We're going to delve into the smallest details about Joker, and me giving my opinion on all these different aspects to the film. So if you guys don't want to hear about spoilers, if you don't want to, have anything ruined for you in that sense, probably best to click off now. But if you don't really care about spoilers, or if you've already seen the film, definitely stick around, because it's going to be really interesting to discuss this film and to get my opinions out there, and hopefully to get a bit of back and forth with you in the chat as well. But I know for me, I've not seen a film in this genre that tackles subject matter like this so well. How it explores mental illness, how it explores kind of how people can get separated from society, how people treat you, how that can change who you are as you get older, and how that can mold you as a human being. I don't think any film tackles it as well as Joker, to be honest, in this genre. There has been a lot of dark superhero films. The Dark Knight is very dark. Obviously, it's The Dark Knight, but it's a very dark film in that sense, tonally, with its subject matter. How it views things like terrorism and corporate kind of how that separation between the upper class and the lower class, how that separation's kind of there. And this film definitely goes into that as well. This film definitely has a very political undercurrent there. How it discusses things, how it discusses the separation between rich people and poor people, and how that can separate and split a society apart. There's a lot of that in there. It's really incredible how it tackles this, and it's so brave to do that, because it's going to get a lot of controversy. It's going to get a lot of people being very negative about the film and not really having it's the way to put it, not having a very strong kind of, opinion on it. Like, people are going to have a strong opinion on Joker either way. Even if they liked it or they didn't like it. I love the film. I think the film's a masterpiece. I think it's absolutely incredible. But I can see why people might be affected by it. For people to say, now obviously this film's got a lot of controversy, and I don't really understand why. Like, from my opinion, I don't really get it. People are talking about how this film promotes violence and how it kind of defends people who do bad things, how it might kind of influence and convince people to do, very violent acts and kind of, have them done in a very sympathetic way. And I don't get that at all. This conversation's been going for years now about movies and video games and music, how they can kind of influence people, especially younger people, to commit acts of violence or do, very, very bad things, whether it be robbery or, whatever it might be. A lot of people have that opinion, and it's especially kind of the older generation who don't really understand modern media. They kind of see this as, a very harmful film. And for me, that's complete bollocks. I'm sorry, but just because there might be... Now, I'm not saying that someone has watched, say, Chucky or the Saw films or Joker or whatever it might be, and either had a thought about committing a violent act or have gone to do that. But that's in a very small minority. That's a very small minority. And I think it's very bad to kind of segregate a large community of people based around one or two people's acts. I think that's very bad. Like, the gaming community and the film community, a lot of them are just normal people who can go to the film, go to the cinemas, or play a game and see it for what it is. It's entertainment. You take from it what it is. The people who go and play the games or watch the films and can relate to that and then go out and do something bad, that's a problem with them, not a problem with the art. I think it's very bad to kind of blame an art form or an artist for someone else's issues. And I think for people to kind of point the finger at this film and say this film's going to cause violence and this film's going to cause an uproar is completely insane to say that. Even though it might cause issues for some people, on the broad scope, like 99.9% of people will watch this film and understand the message that it's trying to get across. Like, but then there will be some people who won't get that. But for people to say that this film is going to cause it's ridiculous. There's been a lot more violence in films than in Joker. The violence in Joker is very minimal, to be fair. Not minimal, but there's a couple bits of there's a very violent scene in which the Joker kills his ex-co-worker in his apartment. And that's very brutal. That's very aggressive. That's very intense. There's a scene where he shoots Robert De Niro's character on the on the talk show, that Murray or whatever his name, Murray Franklin, I think the character's called. He shoots him very aggressively and very, a lot of wrong in that. But for people to take something away from that and say this film now is the worst film for, promoting violence is completely ridiculous. Black Mass is a far more violent film than this, and yet people are, not. When Black Mass came out, no one was saying anything about that. So why are people saying anything about the Joker? It's because of expectation, and that's the problem. I think people are expecting this film to be a light-hearted comic book superhero film that you can take your kids to, and all the Joker is not that film. Joker's not that film. Don't make sure you understand what you're going to see before you go and see it. This film is not going to entertain you in that, oh, I love that film, that was really entertaining, what a fun experience. No, this film, you leave the cinema in this film and you feel depressed. It's the best way to say. You go out of this film, you are questioning human beings, you are questioning the people around you, you are questioning morality, you're questioning everything. But that's the point of the film that it's trying to make. That's the point that Todd Phillips and the actors and the screenwriters, that's what they want you to do. So the film's successful in doing that, and it's fantastic for doing that, because that's what films should do. Films should pose questions, and films should prod at the audience and make them feel uncomfortable. That's what a good film should do, and Joker definitely does that. Now, away from all the controversy, away from all that, let's get onto the actual quality of the film. Like I said, this is the best film I've seen for about 6 years. I'd probably say this is the best film I've seen since 12 Years a Slave. That came out in around Christmas time, 2013. So about I think it was November 2013. 12 Years a Slave came out, and that was the best film I'd seen up to that point, as far as an overall film. Not my favourite film necessarily. I wouldn't say it's my favourite film, but it's the best film I've seen probably ever. In cinemas anyway. I can go back to films from the 80s and the 70s and say those are the best films ever made. Films like The Shining, films like Rocky, whatever it might be. Those are the films that I put that category. But for modern cinema, I think 12 Years a Slave is a complete masterpiece. And for me to say that The Joker is anywhere near that, or is the best film I've seen since then, that should tell you the amount of praise I have for this film. From the first scene, it sets the tone perfectly. Joker, Arthur Fleck is sitting with his kind of counsellor to get his medication. He's kind of having an evaluation. He has these quite frequently. And it just starts off with him kind of uncontrollably laughing, and instantly it makes you feel uncomfortable. Instantly, it sets that tone that this film is going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be on the edge. You don't know what to expect. It just sets the tone so perfectly. And then kind of going from that, it kind of really delves into the psyche of this character, which all gets revealed later. One of the main things I like about this film is that it can turn on a dime. It can turn on a dime. And it comes from the performance. Joaquin Phoenix gives, I think, probably the best performance I've ever seen in a comic book film or superhero film. He gives one of the best performances I've ever seen in Joker. This is an incredible performance from start to finish. His commitment, both physically and mentally, to this character is a joy to behold. When he first turned up on screen, I was like, oh yeah, it's Joaquin Phoenix. I'm a huge fan of Joaquin Phoenix. So when I first saw him in the film, I was kind of like, yeah, you're Joaquin Phoenix. And then after that first scene, the opening scene, I was like, yeah, you're the Joker. You're definitely the Joker. He's so... He does this amazing thing where he makes you feel so sorry for him and have so much pity for the character. but yet you completely despise him as well. He's so intense. Like in every scene that he's in, you feel like he's going to snap. You feel like he's just going to completely lose it. Even the small little things with his legs twitching, the way he does this uncontrollable laughter when he's in a very uncomfortable situation. It's all very natural. It's played so naturalistic that it's so uncomfortable to watch, and that's throughout the entire film. That's not just the beginning or the end. That's through the entire film. You see the dissection of this character completely from start to finish. You see how he can turn from someone who definitely has issues and someone who is being controlled by the government through medication and all these things. As soon as they cut his funding for his medication, that's when you see his psychological torment just completely just come through. From the moment when he goes to from the moment he finds out that Thomas Wayne might be his dad. The Waynes are in this film. Bruce Wayne is in this film. Obviously, you get to see that iconic scene of Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed near the end of the film. And that's very intense. It's a very intense scene. I like how they kind of relay that back to the Joker. It kind of builds that connective tissue. But getting back to the point where, when he finds out that Thomas Wayne is his dad, after he finds out, well, his mom tells him that she had an affair with Thomas Wayne when she was working there like 30 years ago. And they had a child, and that child is Arthur. That kind of gives him somewhat of a bit of hope that, he might have a father who's going to love him and cherish him and look after him and care for him. And then he goes there, he sees Thomas Wayne at the movie theatre, and, he completely blanks him. He has no affinity towards him. He tells him that his mom's mad and crazy, which obviously Arthur doesn't believe. That we find out later in the film that she is insane and she didn't have this affair with Thomas Wayne or anything like that. So basically the reason why this character is the way he is because he's just been completely destroyed from childhood. He was adopted by his mother, who was she had this condition where she was almost living in a fantasy world, and that kind of is the same situation that Arthur is in during the film, with this girlfriend character that he has that lives a few doors down in the same building as him. He imagines this character, this female. I can't remember the character's name, but he imagines her as his girlfriend throughout the entire film. You fully believe it. You're fully sucked into the film. You believe that these two are together. And then near the end of the film, where he goes to her apartment, she has no idea who he is. That really is, I couldn't believe that. That was incredible. The way they did that, the tension in that scene is palpable. You can feel it coming through the screen. It's so intense and visceral and brutal, psychologically brutal. Joaquin Phoenix kills it in that scene. He completely kills it in that scene. So really, it's the mixture of an incredible performance, incredible direction, amazing character development, and a really great script that makes this film what it is. Without this script and without Joaquin Phoenix's performance, this film would not work. If you had an actor who was just phoning it in, didn't really care about the character, just wanted to get a paycheck, this film would not work. This film needs the actor to completely just lose themselves in this role. And it's very clear that Joaquin did that. He completely lost himself in this character. You can see in his eye. There's this one scene, it is in the trailer, I think. There's this one scene where he's at his mother's bedside because his mum gets taken to hospital because she has a stroke, I think. So she goes to the hospital, Arthur's with her, and he sees the Robert De Niro character, Murray Franklin, doing his talk show. And he shows a clip of Arthur, who is a aspiring stand-up comedian. He shows a clip from one of his shows, and he kind of rips into him and takes the piss out of him. Really, he shows him up and embarrasses him, and you see the intensity in his eyes as he's looking at that telly in the hospital room. You can see the anger and the rage just boiling. He didn't even say a word. He didn't have to say a word. It was through Joaquin's performance that you saw that anger and frustration towards his character, which then relays later on in the film when he, kills that Murray character. You understand why he's doing that, because for his whole life he's been kind of segregated and unloved and unappreciated. And then when he sees someone who he looks at as a hero and as a mentor, when he sees that person, kind of abuse him verbally and, really kind of rip into him, that really affects the character. That really affects, Arthur, and that kind of is a lead into what he does later. So yeah, really, Joaquin is incredible. Basically, if he doesn't get an Oscar nomination for this, then it's a complete travesty in my eyes. He has to get an Oscar nomination for this. He has to. This is literally one of the greatest performances I've ever seen, guys. I can't put it into words how incredible Joaquin Phoenix is in this film. You have to really see it to believe it. He's incredible. He's incredible in everything he's in, but I think this might be the greatest performance I've ever seen him give. He's incredible from start to finish. Like I said, he really makes you feel sorry for him. He's very sympathetic and pitiful, but then also he has enough in there that you really feel a certain hatred towards the character, but you understand his motives, but you can very, very much disagree with what he's doing. Now, away from the performances and all that, I have to give a massive credit to Todd Phillips. He had a lot of doubters coming into this film. Obviously, he's most known for comedy. He's most known for things like Hangover and Due Date and, these kind of buddy comedies and I like Todd Phillips. The Hangover, the first one, is one of my favourite comedies of all time. The second one definitely dropped the ball. It was a lot of the same thing. Hangover 3, I definitely felt like he was trying to do something different with how it was still a comedy, but it felt more like an action thriller than a comedy at some point. So you can kind of see that, yes, he's a comedy director, but he likes to kind of explore with other themes and other genres within his films. Very similar to Joker. Joker has moments where it is very funny. It has moments where it can make you laugh. But mainly it is a drama. Don't get my words twisted on that. This film is 100% a drama. It is not a comedy. It's not really a thriller. It's not a horror. It's not an action film. This film is a drama. This film is 100% a drama. If this film didn't have Joker in it, if this was just a film about this mentally ill human being who just completely loses his shit and ends up going on this killing spree, then this film, I think, would be received better than it is. I think this film is being received the way it is due to the fact that people was expecting something different. I think give it a year, 2 years, this film will be looked at as one of the greatest films of its era, of this generation. I really do think that. I feel that strongly about this film. Yes, this film was my most anticipated film of the year, arguably. But that doesn't matter, because I've seen films. The Lion King, for example. I had very high expectations for The Lion King, went in, hated it. From start to finish, hated it. So I'm not one of these people that just go in with high expectations, and because it's a property or a character that I like, I'll just completely, I'll just enjoy whatever it is. I'm not that type of person. I'll look at every aspect of the film. I'll look for negatives. I was looking for negatives while watching Joker, and I genuinely couldn't find any. The music is incredible. The score in this film has got a lot to do with setting up the tone, which a good score should do. A good score should not over. It shouldn't. A good score shouldn't be better than the film, if that makes sense. That it should be a complementary. It's like for example, if you go for a dessert, right? If you go for, I don't know, if you go for a waffle, right? And if you go for a waffle or I don't know, a crepe or something like that, and you go for a waffle and you say, oh, it was really good, but I think the chocolate sauce was better than the waffle, then well, that's not really great, is it? You know what I mean? Where I think that kind of is the same with Joker and its score. The music should be that chocolate sauce. It should just be a complementary side to what's already something great. And that's exactly what the score is in this film. It's the perfect way to get a balance there. Like every scene, you don't watch this film and think, wow, what a beautiful piece of music. You don't think that. But what you do think is, holy shit, this film is fucking intense. And the reason for that, one of the reasons for that, is due to the score. The score is fantastic from start to finish, very intense. There's a lot of, it kind of takes inspiration from kind of James Wan horror, if that makes sense. It's not really like a dramatic score. It's very intense, very kind of, very on the edge kind of music. Then they add like songs in there as well. I know there's like a Gary Glitter song in there, which I think pissed a lot of people off, myself included. I think that's a bit weird. I don't think they should have done that. I think having a song from a convicted paedophile in your film is not really going to help the controversy factor, is it really? And Gary Glitter is going to get paid for that as well, which is really fucking disgusting, but that's for another discussion. But most of all, the actual original score for this film is incredible. Cinematography, beautiful, gorgeous looking film. But it's not gorgeous in the fact that you have these beautiful sweeping camera movements. It's not like a Roger Deakins film where you have these beautiful camera movements and this amazing cinematography. It's not like that. The cinematography is very smart. It's smart because I'll discuss why it's smart. Because you don't get these beautiful camera movements. The cinematography, it's very kind of almost like an amateur film in that way. It's very raw, very visceral, a lot of handheld camera work, a lot of just steady, kind of almost like tripod camera work. There's not really a lot of movement. There's not really a lot of dolly movement in the film. There's not really a lot of kind of steady cam work or crane shots or anything like that. It's very much low to the ground, very in the moment. You feel like almost like you're a character in the film when you watch it because of the cinematography. And that goes for the lighting as well. The lighting is very well done. It has this ambience there. It's very kind of dark, gritty, very intense lighting, and it adds to the kind of on the edge aspect of the film when you watch it and you think you can barely kind of see. There's the scene on the train is a great example, how the lights kind of go off and on and off and on. They didn't have to do that, but because they did that, it kind of adds that like on the edge. You don't know what's going to happen. The unpredictability factor. It adds all that in there, and the film's better for it. To be honest, the film's better for the cinematography and the lighting and the camera work. All of that. That's a huge part to why this film's so great, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm gonna have to stick to my opinion on that, guys. The Joker. I definitely want to go see it again. I probably might go and see. I don't think I'll go and see it today, but I'll definitely go and see it another time, so I can get like, because obviously I've watched it. You know, will it have that repeat viewing? I don't think this film's the type of film that you go back again and again and again and again and again, like Endgame. It hasn't got that rewatchability factor, I don't think. but it's not meant to, because it's it's like 12 Years a Slave, like a film that I mentioned earlier, 12 Years a Slave. I've watched that film. It came out 6 years ago. I think I've watched it twice because it's so intense to watch. It's so uncomfortable to watch that it's not fun. It's not a fun film to watch. But it's a film that's very effective, very emotional. It takes you on a journey, and that's exactly what Joker does. It's a film that takes you on a journey. The way it kind of deconstructs, like I said earlier, this film is a great example of how a film can completely strip back and deconstruct the psychologically of what makes a human being go insane. And it does it perfectly. Joker really does it perfectly. I think a lot of people were saying for this film to get nominated for Best Picture. If it was up to me, obviously there's still like a lot of the year left to go. There's still like a month and a half, 2.5 months left of the year. So there's still a lot of the year to go. So obviously it's very early days. There's still a lot of films to come out. So we can't really put a stamp on it and say this film deserves to get nominated for Best Picture, or Joaquin Phoenix deserves to get nominated for Best Actor. I wouldn't say that. I think that's very early to say that, but the potential is there for this film to get those award nominations. But I think Best Picture might be a struggle due to the controversy that's surrounded this film. That might sway the Academy voters, maybe. But if it was my opinion, this film is the best film of the year. Again, it depends what you want. Like, this film isn't my favourite film of the year by a mile. Toy Story 4, Far From Home, and Endgame, I enjoyed watching more. But Joker is by far a better film than those films. By far. There is not a film that has affected me as deeply, has emotionally gripped me, has made me really question morality as much as this film throughout the entire year, or I'd say the last couple of years, really. This film is a perfect example of how to take very recognizable source material, change it, spin it, twist it, make it your own, do something different with it, put your own spin on it, and make it something special. And I think that's what Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix have done with this film. This is, for me, a very special, a very incredible viewing experience that needs to be had by any fan of this character. Or if you're not a fan of this character and you like dramas and you like, kind of thriller aspects in your films, this is definitely one of the films that I would recommend to see. If you like films like Split, I think a good comparison for this film is Split in a way, because it starts off with someone who you don't really understand, you don't really get the motives, but then as it gets, further on in the film, it reveals things and tells you things, and it has twists and turns in there. It shows how, someone who is just a normal human being can completely lose their shit. It's a villain origin story. And how many good villain origin stories are there out there in film? There's not many. I mean, I can't really think of a lot, to be honest. I mean, I'm trying to think. I can't think of any, really. I mean, that's baffling, isn't it? Like, you think of all the great villains in film history. There's not many. There's there's Hannibal, but not great. So the villain films, for me, this is a good starting point for the future of this genre, for villain films. It's very interesting to see that, to make a pure villain film. I don't mean something like Venom, where they basically do an anti-hero film. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that are completely, you have no kind of, there's no grey area there. Those films need to be made more. And if it's films that are made with the care and the love that has been made for this film, then I think this genre has a lot. This film really is kind of an answer to all those people that are saying the superhero film's going to die out. It's a boring genre. It's the same films over and over again. It's just copy and paste, copy and paste. This film is a direct answer to all those critics. And for people to still moan about it, maybe you're just not a fan of comic book films. Like all the people that just moan about comic book films and they ask for something different, but yet they get something different, they moan about it anyway. Maybe you just don't like the genre. Maybe it's just not for you. Maybe it's just not your cup of tea. But if there was a film to show someone, there's two films I'd show people that if they said they weren't fans of superhero films, there's two films I'd show them. One of them would be Joker, and the other one would be The Dark Knight. And speaking of The Dark Knight, this is going to be the big thing, isn't it? Obviously, Joker's come out. This is going to be the biggest thing from this film. Is his performance better than Heath Ledger's? My answer is you can't compare them. You can't compare them. They're two very, very different characters. Yes, they share the same name. Yes, they're in the same kind of world. They come from the same background, all of that. But these characters are very, very different. Heath Ledger's Joker was this mysterious force of nature. You didn't really know anything about the character. You know nothing about his background. All he was there's this guy who we need to stop because he's completely insane and he's capable of anything. That's what Heath Ledger's Joker is. He's chaos. And he says it in the film, he's chaos. That's what he is. He's unpredictable. You never know what he's going to do. You don't really understand the character, which makes him more like terrifying in a way because you don't really know what his motives are. You don't know what's led to him getting to this point. Even though there's pointers in the film that kind of suggest towards things that have happened in his past that have led him to get to this point, nothing's ever set in stone. So it's all kind of theories and mystery. Where with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, you understand exactly every single motive that makes this character what he is. You understand everything's kind of given to you. All the information is given to you in this film. From start to finish, every little bit of information that you'd want to understand the character is here. What made him what's led to him getting to this point in his life? Why does he feel the way he does? You know, what makes him do, like, you know, what makes him tick? What makes him, you know, what makes him laugh? What makes him cry? What makes him sad? What makes him angry? All of these things you understand. So they're very different characters. It depends what you like. If you like very deep characters with a lot of backstory and a lot of history and a lot of, you know, a lot of character moments, then this will definitely be a better performance for you. But if you like very mysterious, haunting, chilling, you know, like terrifying, uncomfortable performance, then it's Ledger every day of the week. Ledger won an Oscar for this, for Dark Knight. So if Joaquin can even get nominated, for me, that's a success. What performance is better, in my opinion? Like I said, you can't really compare them because they're two very, very different characters. Ledger is incredible in The Dark Knight. Ledger is incredible in The Dark Knight. But his role, he was very much doing the same thing in every scene. I don't want to diminish how great he was in that film because he was insanely great. It's one of the best performances of all time. But a lot of the scenes was him doing the same thing. Whereas Joaquin Phoenix, because he's got more to do, and I want to point that out because it's his film, he's got a lot more to do. You get a vastly different layers of performance. You get a different emotion. You get different character arcs. You get different moments for him to be physical, a lot of physical performance in this film. He doesn't have to say anything. There's a lot of scenes that are very slow and he doesn't need to say anything. And yet you feel every single moment in this film you feel. Where I feel like Heath Ledger's Joker, a lot of his motives are described through dialogue. Whereas in this case, in the case of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, a lot of the performance, a lot of the character work, a lot of everything is done through subtlety. And subtlety for me makes a stronger character because you can kind of grasp your own opinion of that character. It's a stronger performance because of it. So if I was going to say which is better, for me, Joaquin. That's going to be so controversial and it's going to piss people off. But I think as a layered performance, as a very complex character, I think Joaquin Phoenix's Joker performance is better than Heath Ledger's. This is, like I said, one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in a film. So it's not just comparing him against the Joker from Heath Ledger's Joker. It's comparing him against every other performance out there right now in this year. Joaquin Phoenix is giving the best performance of the year so far. That's not even in the question for me. I can't even disagree. I can't even put a performance up there which compares to it. Joaquin Phoenix is given the best performance of the year so far, but there's a lot of the year left to go. If this performance would have came out in like December and we've got all the films, then it's a different story. But because it's come out so early in the Oscar season, it's so hard to determine if this is the best perform. This will end up being the best performance of the year, but for me, it is so far. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But it's going to be very interesting to see as the time goes on how the Joker, how this film will do with the Oscar season and with the awards, the Golden Globes, and all of that. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, guys, I'm very interested to see that. If you've got any thoughts about Joker, if you've seen the film, if you are looking forward to the film, if you have your opinions on the controversy around this film, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and we can have a little discussion about our thoughts about the film. So yeah, guys, that'll be the podcast for today. Thank you very, very, very much for watching. I've really enjoyed coming back to do this podcast. Like I said, I know it's been a while, but I'm hoping to do more of these, trying to make it more of a regular thing. I want to try and discuss more like what I was doing before, talking about like bits of news and things like that. So hopefully I can get there. The next show, I'm probably going to say Saturday because I've got work up until then. So probably Saturday will probably be the next day that I'll do a podcast episode, and I might be talking about each chapter 2. It depends if I go and see it. But we'll have to just wait and see how that goes, guys. So thank you very, very much for watching. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on SoundCloud after I put it up, if you're listening to this on SoundCloud, then please follow my SoundCloud and share it around. That'd be fantastic. The support so far has been incredible for this podcast. The people who've watched it from the start and have seen it grow from the Lion King rant, up until now. It's fantastic that you guys have supported me from that. So I'm very excited to see, how far we can get talking about films. And yeah, it's been fantastic, guys. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all very, very soon, guys. Thank you.